So in this video, it's step 2. Now I've called it step 2, but it's exactly where we left off last time. So I copied the folder, and in this one we're going to add, we're going to change our views. We're going to add some packages and start messing with the route a little bit, right? We'll add a new route and get that organized. So the first thing to do is install the software. So there's some extra software that we are going to need, and it's for our back end. And a so node can talk to Postgres in that. So we can go npm install, and I'm going to go pg. I'll do it in 2 steps. You could just go comma, list all the packages separated by a comma. So we'll install pg, and then we'll install express sessions and get that happening. Okay, bring that back up. Express hyphen session. We'll get that installed. Once it's done, we'll do a little refresh on the nodes module just to make sure that they're there. Okay, so really important refresh. Go back here. If we scroll down, it's in alphabetical order. Express session, it's installed. And PG, there'll be a bunch. There's PG, good. The technology we want to connect to the database is there. And the part we want to be able to save the user's credentials on the session, it's also installed. Okay, so what to do now? Let's get our views into place. And so I have some data, and so I copied this from the J drive to my Z already. Right, so this is my Z drive. The first thing I'm going to put into place is I'm going to get these views. I'm just going to highlight them all. Control A to select them all. Control C to copy. I'm going to actually click on a view and go Reveal in Explorer. So this will open up the directory for me, and I'm going to paste them in here. And yes, I want to replace those ones. So I got my views in place. I'm going to put some other files in place. I'll get my fave icon in place here. So I'm going to click on this and go Reveal in Explorer. I want to be right at the public level. Yes, this is good. So I'm going to drop my fave icon in there once I find it. And that's going to be, no, this one here. Yes, I'll go up. I'm going to go over to public. I'll need SQLs later, but public, get the fave icon, drop that in. Okay. Done. I'm going to need some cascading style sheets. Those are going to go in here and that. So I'm going to put there, and where do I have them? Over in here. I think I have them in the CSS directory. So pure and that. We'll drop that into place. Is that enough to test? Maybe. And that. So we'll just slide these off screen. We'll stand this up and hey, see if the index view gets the cascading style sheet styling, and if it's a stacked form like we want. So we're going to fire this up. Wait till we see the listening on 3000. Then we'll get into Chrome. It's good to go. So I'm going to type in localhost 3000. Okay, and so we have our stack frame, our cascading style sheets being applied, and our custom, I guess, index page is there. What I would suggest is while you're testing is to hard code in probably the username. This is my test account. And I will, the database as well, JST 7132 M10. So this will be saved. If you're working in public or working in the pug views, you don't have to restart the server. Just refresh. There, away you go. So we have that set up. What we need to do now is basically adjust our route so that when someone clicks connect, they connect to the database and that. So let's go back. We're going to have to shut the server down. So you can just hit the little trash icon. That CLS to clear off the terminal. Where we're going to be working now, might do a little bit of cleanup in here. We'll see. the Cascading style sheets, one thing is just to drive home the concept of what the selector is. When you're using these selectors, the pound sign, it's a match on ID. So I might actually change that just so it's more clear that we are what we're searching for. If it uses the dot, like dot map, it's looking for any element that is of class map. So that's usually a many. So the selectors based on ID, let's say. Now these names are going to have to match, so I'll go change them in my Pug view. You don't have to do this, but it's just to drive home the message that when you see this selector, it's called the pound sign. What's it really matching on in your HTML in that? So I'm going to go, actually, I think it's in the Parks view where we have that. So ID, report ID. So I'm going to make that report ID, and I'll make that. So it matches on ID. So not name, not class, but whatever you have in for ID. Just to really be clear about that's what's being matched there. Okay. In that. And so, but that's a little tweak I just want to do to make sure we understand what's happening when we apply the styles. So what we have to change now are the route or the main route. We only have a sort of an index route. Usually we put each route into a separate file. Well, we're not going to do that. We're going to try to keep it simple at this point in time. So I'm just going to get into this area and start separating it. So the first thing I want to do is sort of acknowledge an import area. That's what we're trying to do with these required statements of CommonJS, is bring in other people's code. So this is a classic import area that you would see Python and Java, lots of other languages in that. So when we're going required, we're typically doing conceptually an import. This is going to be my router and route section right now. And I do have an import, this export area. I just want to make sure that doesn't get deleted, so that hopefully the block comment will also act as a blocker in that export area. Now, we do have to bring some more code in. So there's two big chunks of code we're going to bring in: express sessions and PG, so var. I'm going to call it session, and I'm going to say require. And who do I want to require? Express. Now it's peeking over my node modules that I installed, and so it's going to select it off the list. Done. Now there's another technique that you might see. If you need to import a whole bunch of objects from a library in that. So some libraries are packaged like functions, and some are packaged with lots of like JavaScript objects. And in this case, I'm going to go is equal to require, and I want to require PG. And again, it'll go peek over node modules to see what I got. When I do it like this, I can back up and go control space bar. It's going to show me all the stuff that is available to me in this PG library. And one of the objects I want is a pool object that allows me to make a pool connection in that. And I'm going to use it multiple routes, so I want it up high like that. So that's really my import area. It's like in Python when you go import some object from some library. It's that kind of style in that. Now the router looks okay. I might change just the documentation here. And I'll say we'll say get method on the root route, which is someone just coming to our page, localhost 3000 on the top route. Okay, and what do? We index the, well, we render the index page. What I'm going to do now is, what if someone posts on this route? So we're going to put that in there. And then typically the only way, not the only way, but if you're going to post on this route, it's usually a form sending data back. So one is gets like give me data, post is like I'm sending you data, do something with it. So this would be post method on the main route. I'll show you how this ties in. Now we're not going to be actually rendering the index page, but I'll show you where in the Pug file this is happening. So in our index page, in our form, when someone submits, the action is /. So this can be a URL, like something like report, like go to the URL report. Here we're saying go back to the home page. So that we're doing and then the method is post. So we're posting on this route. Okay, and that's where that information comes, and that's going to be coming from the browser, and that's going to trigger our code in the back end to run. So that code will then run, and then we get to decide what we want to do. Now, I do have a snippet in the M10 files. So I'm going to grab those and bring them over onto the screen. So here, 7132, I think a little too high. JavaScripts, backend. This is the only one we really need. I'm going to go open in Notepad++. And that. I need this chunk of code here. Control A, Control copy. That's what I want. Control A, Control C. And I'm going to put this in my post route. So what this is when someone fills that form in, and Alt Shift F will adjust my indentation. This will pull. So someone will send a post back with the data, and we will pull all that information, request body host. And then the key thing here is this .host. These names, .host, .port, .database, .username, .password, have to match the names you have used here. Password, host, port, database, username. It has to match those. Order is not too critical here, but those names do have to match to make that happen. Now, that means that in the back end, I've got the data for the form. And so what I need to do now is probably create a pooled connection. So I'm going to use var. And I'm going to create a poolcon. So not a poolcon, poolcon. So sort of a pool connection, and it's going to equal to a new pool that I imported. And I'm going to send it the connection config information. Oh, one other thing I'm going to do is what? What am I going to do? Session dot config connection config. Connection config. This is me taking that information that just got entered by the user, storing it back on the session for them so they don't have to re-enter it on every page they visit in that, or every page that needs to connect to the database. So I'm saving their information to the session. I'm creating a connection. The question will always be, when I do that, does that try to make the connection to the database? And right now, I can tell you it doesn't. It kind of just stores the data that you gave it. It's not going to make the connection right away. And so that's where you might want to have some error handling. What if I get a bad username, bad password, and I get an error back from the database? We don't have to worry right now because it doesn't fire. It just gathers the information in that. Now I'm going to need an SQL var. I'm going to call it SQL, and it's going to be equal to some SQL. Again, I'm going to get those files. So up in the SQL. So we've been to views. Now we're going to go into SQL. We're going to get this get park names, lat long, open it in Notepad++. I'll slide it across, Control A, Control C to copy, and I'm going to bring it back over here. So this is the query that we want to run against the database. Nice thing we're going to do for the user, we're going to order it by the field. So we're going to go get the park name, and it's lat long as a string from park names table, and we're going to sort it in ascending order based on that park name to help the users out. I'm going to put some semicolons in here that I seem to be missing to be safe. Yes. Okay, so that's what I want to do. Now this is the big step. Next big step would be to query the database. So what we do is we go poolcon dot query. And what do we want to query? Well, that's the SQL up there. And then we could go dot then. What if it's dot then? Dot. I'll find the dot eventually. There, dot then, do something. Dot catch. Now this is a weird, it is one big long line, but what you see everyone do is they'll just wrap it, right? It is one big statement and it does not end until the semicolon. But for clarity, right, Alt Shift F, it's a little clearer if we break it out across multiple lines. So we're going to do, there's a couple things that happen, right? And there's a couple of things that can go wrong. When we go dot query, it's going to first have to make a connection that could go wrong. It could run that query, and that could go wrong. The query could be bad. The query could, the table, we might be on the wrong database, so the table may not be there. So there's lots of reasons where we might cause an error and trigger the catch part. Okay, so, but if it is a good query, a good connection, followed by a good query that brings back rows and columns, i.e. doesn't blow up, then we want to render the parks page. And so we were just going to go, what would be a good thing to say? So if it's good, there's definitely going to be some data coming back. And so I'll just call that the result for now. And then I immediately want to send that to, or run a function. The arrow means a function, so kind of a virtual function we're going to make here on the fly between these parentheses. So if it's all good, good connection, good query, then some data is going to come back. We're going to call the data result. We could call it anything. And then we're going to say, much like we would have rendered the index page, right? We're going to say something like this, just so you know. Just have to change the name. We are going to render not the index page, but the parks page, the parks pug page. Done. And the key here is I'm going to go result. Okay. Now, I made all the names the same so that it can get confusing. So I can unmake the names being the same. This is good. This query is going to return some data, so let's call it data. That means that this over here has to be called data as well, because this is the data we're going to send in. This is a key value pair. I like to quote these things just so that you understand that is the key, right? And this is the value for the key, the big chunk of data. What's important here is that result has to match the name in the pug file. Okay, so this name has to match here and here, and this name has to match the name in the pug file, and the name in the pug file is right here. That's where you know what has to match where. That's the big important thing. Yeah, I mean, this would be pretty close to testing. There is one thing that we should probably drop into place is in our JavaScript file. Okay, I'm going to open this up and I'm going to go reveal and explore. I'm also going to bring across, that's one file browser. So that's, I want to be down in here. I'm going to bring across the mod10 data folder. I'm going to go up here into my JavaScript's front end. And I'm just going to grab this one. And I'm going to paste it in here. There's not much in there yet. And it's pasted. Now, I'm going to need a link on my parks page to say, hey, by the way, right, that JavaScript file is there. So I'll probably do it in my parks pug. I'll probably do it here. Pick script source off the list. Ooh, this has to be tabbed in. That will cause problems. Home tab there. The script source is going to be /java scripts plural gist7132.js. So it has to match this path, this file name. So JavaScripts gist7132 should be good. So that'll link in my gist712 JavaScript file to this parks page so that when we're hoping what happens in parks.pug is that we get a selector built up with all the options. So the backend's going to populate the select and send it to us prepackaged as a big chunk of HTML. This is a lot of stuff to make sure is still running. So let's find out if it's going to work. And we're not going to be surprised if it blows up. So we will fire this up. Wait for that message, and then we'll hop over and see if we can actually query this thing in Chrome. So you still got to wait for that magic line to pop up. It's listening, so let's go see if we can go there. I'm going to do a refresh on this. Make sure it's clean. Looks like it's not broken. Still not finding my fave icon, but that's okay. Oh, I just got to check my VPN for a second. Okay, so I'm doing this from home, but if you're doing this from the Word desktop, you'll be okay. My VPN was on, so that's good. So this is going to go all the way back to school and grab some data out of the database. Oh, I got so lucky, right? That went back into the database. It did that query and filled up. So that query worked on my sites, my index.js. So that worked in that. I should finish off the catch part. I got lucky. The query was good. It made a good connection to the database. We'll fill this catch in for an error. How it's going to be is that if there is an error, then we want to render, res.render, the error page in our views. This won't affect our currently running app. We're going to run this error PG error PG pug file. So error PG. And again, we're going to send it some data. It will be the error that we sent before. So I'm going to go here, error, and that's going to be the key. The data will be, I think I just use different names so it's clear. Right now, I got to check my error page because I think I'm just sending the message. So I would have to go error.message. I'll send the whole object in case there's more stuff in there that they might want to print out later. But this name has to match the key. And this, whatever you call this argument, because this is really actually it's a parameter to a function, has to match the variable name over here in that. So that looks okay. But let's go back. And what happens when we do this? Anything? Let's see. Inspect. We're either going to have error in the console or everything's going to be good. In that, let's go to the console. Oh, we have the lat long. Do we get a different one? Okay, so what does that mean? That means it found our JavaScript file. All good. So it found this particular JavaScript file where in the back end, public JavaScript. It found this because in this, it logs out the lat long. Okay. So I think what I'll do is I'll stop the server and restart it and see if we can get that error page to basically occur. And so let's fire it back up again. So the one thing we noticed from testing is the password can't be blank. That seems to crash the server. But we will put in a bad password. It's listening. Let's go back. And so we're going to go back to the main page, / it'll start reloading. It's back. I'm going to put a bad password in. I'll put in like one single blank space. It just can't be empty. There's got to be something there. For some reason, that seems to blow things up. That's something we might want to add to our, what would it be? It could be a setting actually in the server gamma itself that you have the password. So it does pick up the fact if the username password is bad, but it doesn't like it if it's blank. If I go blank, well, I'll show you. It's going to crash the server, right? So just spinning. But if we go back and look, server crashed out and that sort of thing. So that's something you might want to catch in production for sure, because someone could forget to type in their password. You don't bring the whole server down, but we just did. But that's okay. We'll just fire it back up if we have to. But so what we did here is we got the park selector working, the queries working, and the way we're doing it is a promise style. Okay, so if we go take a look at this in index.js, this is the advantage of promises. They're kind of clean, but you got to get used to them in that, hey, go try to query. And if that's good, do the good stuff. And if that's bad, catch the error. And we're just simply catch the error, put it to our error page, catch the good data, put it to the page that renders the park page with the good data and that. And then the real work is actually done back in this pug file where they go, hey, for every row that came back, create an option tag and put it in the select basically. And so we're pre-rendering the HTML back on the server and then sending HTML back up to the browser. But that's all we want to do in this particular sample. We'll do another one where we do a callback to another route to get the report information. That's all for now.